The holidays are here, and so is the perfect way to bless your loved ones. The Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide has something for everyone on your list. The team at Crosswalk has handpicked the best devotionals, picture books, middle grade fiction, and adult fiction, so that you can spend less time buying and more time giving to those you love most. So stuff these stories into your stockings and celebrate the wonder of reading this Christmas. Want our gift guide? Visit crosswalk.com/gift guide today.
Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 950. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues a study of the book of Luke with chapter 18. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're going to talk a little bit about prayer here in Luke 18, but first, a word from this sponsor.
There's no way around it. When it comes to healthcare, people are really frustrated with how much it costs and how to pay for it. The usual ways we've been doing this have only gotten more expensive, more complicated, and honestly, just aggravating. And that's why MediShare is such a welcome relief. It's called healthcare sharing. It's different, and it works. More than 1 million Americans are now doing this, and MediShare has been a great option for more than 30 years. So really, you could save thousands of dollars a year on your health care and be happy. Imagine that. If you've heard about it and you want to know more, there are 2 easy options. Go to medishare.com/study. That's medishare.com/study. Or just grab your phone and send a text. You'll get the info, which could really help you and your family out. Text the word STUDY to 70246 to get the facts. Text STUDY to 70246 and you'll get the link. That's STUDY to 70246.
The land of Israel is more than history. It's the key to understanding the Bible today. Join us on the Out of Zion podcast as we connect the Bible, Israel, and your life. Don't wait. That's Out of Zion with Dr. Susan Michael, USA Director for the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, your connection to God's heart for Israel. Listen now at oneplace.com or watch the series on lightsource.com.
Luke 18 starts with the parable of the persistent widow. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, "In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with a plea, 'Grant me justice against my adversary.' For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, 'Even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?'" So this is one of those interesting stories where Jesus is using a unjust person to tell us something about God who is just. And so he is not saying God is like this, but he is saying that if this unjust judge, who doesn't even care to do the right thing, will do the right thing when he is bothered by this widow, won't God, who does do the right things, look and see that his people will find justice? Now, that's the particular thing we need to look at here. Is he's not saying here in this prayers that his people will have that it's prayers for health or prayers for prosperity or prayers for healing. He's specifically talking here about prayers for justice, which is interesting. And I don't know that I ever noticed that detail when I was reading through this story before. So he's definitely talking about prayer, and I love the fact that Luke tells us right up front what we were supposed to get out of the story, right? Jesus told his disciples a parable to make sure they should always pray and not give up. But specifically from the end, not give up on what? Not give up on getting justice. God cares about justice. The law in the Old Testament for these judges, like this person, were that a judge shouldn't be anything like this, that a judge shouldn't be someone who doesn't care what people think, who doesn't fear God. The judges were intended to bring justice because God cares about justice. And yet we live in a world that is unjust. We live in a world where if you are rich, you are more likely to get a outcome in your favor. We live in a world where you're born makes a big difference, that things are not even, things are not fair, and things are not just. But it doesn't mean that we are supposed to be happy with that or content with that. But instead, we are to cry out to him day and night. And will not God see that they get justice and quickly? But then it ends in this rather ominous way. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? I'm hoping the answer to that question is yes. The parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give 1/10 of all I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So again, Luke does us a great favor here and says at the beginning what we're supposed to get out of this parable, or why Jesus told it. To some who are confident in their own righteousness. Well, I'm hoping you're confident in your own righteousness because it's justified, but to those who looked down on everyone else. So at this point, we're talking about self-righteousness. Jesus tells this parable. So he talks about this Pharisee who is confident, Pharisee who is trying to do the right thing, but is literally looking around the temple and saying, boy, I'm glad I'm more righteous than that guy. Wow, that's some chutzpah there. That is some self-righteousness when you're looking around and saying, I'm glad I'm better than that person. For one thing, don't be too sure, because this story, this Pharisee who is saying, I'm not like other people, I'm not like robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or this tax collector, when he leaves the temple, nothing has changed. He hasn't gotten any better, and he is not justified before God, is what Jesus tells us. Because he has no humility. He doesn't see all the things that he may be doing wrong. And he doesn't look at the tax collector with any sort of compassion or empathy and say, maybe, Lord, you should help this guy. He's just self-righteous. Not somebody I think I want to hang out with here. But the tax collector, on the other hand, the tax collector knows that he has done wrong. He doesn't even look up to heaven. He's beating his breast and he's saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And Jesus says, that's the guy who goes home justified before God. That guy who understands that he is not worthy of the grace of God, as we are all not worthy of the grace of God. That's the one who goes home changed. That's the one who goes home in good standing with God. And it is interesting the number of times that Jesus is preaching against those who are religious. And it is a warning for those of us who are religious. Just because we went to Sunday school every Sunday, just because we go to church every day, we shouldn't be so full of ourselves to think that somehow we have earned the grace of God. It is still grace, and we have not. And then continuing on, the little children and Jesus. People were also bringing babies to Jesus for him to place his hands on them. When the disciples saw this, they rebuked them, but Jesus called the children to him and said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly I tell you, anyone who does not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it." It is interesting for us. This story makes perfect sense, and it's definitely the Sunday school Jesus that we think about. This Jesus we see pictured in church here, letting the little children come up and touch him, and he's blessing them. But it's quite different from the time where children were not considered as important. For one thing, they probably wouldn't last. Half the children were going to die before they got to adulthood because of childhood diseases and such in those days, before vaccinations, before we understood germ theory and all of those things that led to high infant mortality. But children were not as important. And so the disciples, just trying to shoo away these, in their minds, less important people. And Jesus will have none of it, because they are important to God, as we are all important to God. And with that, we're going to end this episode of the Bible Study Podcast. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
Hey there, it's Nicole Eunice, host of the How to Study the Bible podcast, where every single week we join together to encounter God through His Word. You can subscribe at lifeaudio.com.
The Historical Jesus Podcast is the sweeping saga of the life and times of Galilean Jesus of Nazareth, as well as the faith, religion, and church founded to honor and disseminate his acts and teachings. Join me, Mark Vinette, on this fascinating journey through time, exploring the many great works of Christian theology, literature, architecture, music, and art, inspired by the words and deeds of Jesus Christ.